My name is Evelyn Marlowe, and I am 31 years old. For 7 years, my parents used my birthday to celebrate my brother Preston. Not once by accident. Not because the bakery got busy. Not because someone forgot to order the right cake. They remembered the date perfectly. September 22nd. They just decided my name was not the one that belonged on it. When I turned 12, the cake said, "Congratulations, Preston." He had won some junior business award at school, the kind printed on cheap paper and framed like a diploma in our living room. When I turned 15, the banner across our backyard read, "Marlowe Pride, Preston did it again." I spent that afternoon refilling lemonade while church ladies told my mother how lucky she was to have raised such a remarkable son. And when I turned 18, there were 52 people standing in our yard, paper plates in their hands, watching my father raise a glass to Preston's first real estate deal. The cake had 2 tiers. His name was written in gold. Mine was on a white envelope at the far corner of the gift table, beside a stack of pink napkins no one opened. My mother, Marianne, kept smiling like nothing was strange. My father, Harland, stood by the grill with his tongs in one hand and his silence in the other. Preston laughed too loudly at every compliment, the way men do when they have learned the room was built for them. I did not cry. I did not make a scene. Not then. I just stood there in my yellow dress, holding the little envelope with my name on it, and realized something that should have broken my heart years earlier. My birthday had not been forgotten. It had been reassigned. That night, I packed a suitcase, a tin box, and one document my mother thought she had destroyed. But before I tell you what was inside that box, you need to understand the first year they taught me my birthday was more useful when it belonged to Preston. Let's skip the promos and get on with the story about that first stolen birthday. This one's actually important to the story. And thanks either way for listening along. Now back to the bakery. If you like this, tell a friend. But right now I need you to hear how they took my birthday. I will not promise prizes, only the truth of that night. Thanks. And the yard smelled like lemon and coal. Now, let's begin the story. Before the first year they gave my birthday away, we still lived above the bakery. Marlowe's hearth sat on the corner of King Street and a narrow alley that smelled like sugar, dish soap, and wet cardboard after rain. My mother opened the ovens at 4:30 every morning. My father came down an hour later to count the register and sharpen pencils. He acted like numbers were safer than people. By 7, the front case was full. Apple crumb muffins, sticky buns, rye rolls, and lemon squares that left powdered sugar on the cuffs of my school sweater. People loved my mother. Marianne Marlowe knew how to make a woman feel remembered when she ordered a cake for her husband's retirement. She knew which church ladies liked extra glaze on their walnut twists. She knew how to press a warm loaf into a grieving widow's hands and say, "No charge today, sweetheart," just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. To the town, she was generous. At home, generosity had rules. Preston was the one she displayed. I was the one she used. He was 5 years older than me, tall before he had earned it, with good hair and a handshake my father kept calling natural. Adults liked Preston because he knew how to look interested while they talked about themselves. He could say, "That sounds like a smart move, Mr. Sutter," at 15 years old and make grown men laugh like he had already joined their table. I was different. I knew how many cupcake liners were left in the pantry. I knew which customers wanted receipts stapled and which ones complained if the coffee urn ran low. Nobody called that talent, they called it helping. On Saturdays, Preston drifted through the bakery in a pressed polo, stole a warm roll from the cooling rack, and disappeared out the back door. 10 minutes later, a customer would ask if that was Marianne's boy, and my mother would smile like someone had complimented the building itself. "That's Preston," she'd say. "He's going places." I would be standing 3 feet away with flour on my wrists, tying ribbon around a cake box that I had packed. My father saw it sometimes. I know he did. Once, when I was 10, I sat at the kitchen table after dinner writing 86 thank you cards for the Christmas orders because my mother said my handwriting looked more personal. 3 of those cards had tiny smears of blue ink, where my hand cramped and dragged across the paper. Dad came in, looked at the stack, then looked at me. For 1 second, I thought he might say it. "Good job, Evelyn." But my mother walked in first. "Don't start making her think every little thing needs applause," she said. My father picked up his coffee mug and went quiet. That was our family in one small scene. My mother deciding what I needed. My father deciding silence was safer. Preston getting credit for the shine. And me learning that useful girls should not wait to be thanked. By the time I turned 11, I already understood my place in that bakery. I just did not know they were about to take the one day that still had my name on it. My 11th birthday fell on a Saturday, which felt lucky until I learned that luck in our house usually arrived carrying someone else's name. I woke up early because I was still young enough to believe that asking for something small made it more likely to happen. 3 friends from school were coming over. I had asked for a blueberry lemon cake, just one round cake with my name in blue icing. I had imagined it so clearly that morning I could almost taste the lemon before I got downstairs. The kitchen was already loud. My mother had her good apron on, the cream one with embroidered cherries, and sheet pans covered every counter. For one bright second, I thought all of it was for me. Then I saw the navy ribbons, the gold plates, the cookies, shaped like little business cards. My mother kissed the top of my head, without looking at me, and said, "Don't stand there, honey. Help me carry these out." The backyard looked less like a child's birthday, and more like a campaign announcement. A banner stretched across the fence. "Congratulations, Preston future business leader." Folding chairs faced the porch. Mr. Sutter stood near the grill, talking to my father. Preston was beside him in a blue shirt, smiling like he had practiced. My 3 friends arrived with gifts wrapped in pink and yellow paper. Hannah slowed down when she saw the banner and whispered, "Is this still your party?" I smiled because embarrassment makes children polite. "Kind of," I said. When my mother brought out the cake, everyone clapped. It was chocolate with gold lettering, taller than anything I had ever asked for. "Congratulations," Preston curved across the top. My blueberry lemon cake came later, from the kitchen, already sliced on a paper plate with no candle. A woman from church leaned toward my mother and asked, "Isn't it Evelyn's birthday too?" My mother laughed softly, the way people laugh when they want a question to disappear. "She understands. She's always been mature for her age." I was behind the table with the cake knife in my hand when she said it. Preston gave a little speech about ambition and family support. Everyone clapped again. My father looked proud enough to hurt. I waited for him to glance at me, just once. He didn't. That night, after the last chair was folded, I asked my mother why my name had not been on the cake. She looked tired, almost disappointed. "You get a birthday every year," she said. "Your brother needed this one." I nodded because I did not yet know how not to. Upstairs, I placed Hannah's unopened gift under my bed and sat on the floor until the house went quiet. I thought that year was an accident. Then, through the floorboards, I heard my mother telling Preston that next year they would do something even nicer if he kept making the family proud. That was when I understood something cold and simple. My birthday had not been borrowed. It had been scheduled. After that year, the birthdays developed rules the way cracks develop in old plaster, thin at first, then suddenly running through the whole wall. Nobody announced them. Nobody said, "Evelyn, from now on your birthday will be useful to the family in a different way." That would have been too honest. Instead, it happened in small adjustments, the kind adults call practical, when they are really stealing something 1 inch at a time. When I turned 12, Preston got picked for a youth leadership breakfast. My mother made navy cupcakes with tiny gold flags and told me we would do my cake later. Later meant after the guests left, when the frosting had crusted over, and the candles were still in the junk drawer. When I turned 13, he got into a summer business program, and my birthday invitations turned into send-off dinner notices. I addressed the envelopes after school, writing names in blue ink while my mother corrected my loops. By 14, I knew better. Compliments in our house usually came with a task attached. That year, Preston had given a terrible presentation at school and come home furious. Another boy had been chosen to speak at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon. So my birthday became an encouragement dinner. Roast chicken, bakery rolls, 2 pies. Calvin Sutter sat at the head of the table, telling Preston that setbacks were just proof a man was aiming high. I sat beside Aunt Rosalie and a stack of dirty plates. My job had settled into routines, everyone understood without saying it. I took coats, refilled coffee, and cut whatever dessert had been chosen for Preston's mood. I wrote down who brought him cards so my mother could send thank you notes later. Which meant I would write the thank you notes later, too. Preston always made a speech. He would stand on the porch steps with one hand in his pocket, talking about ambition, discipline, gratitude. People loved that word from him. Gratitude sounded handsome in his mouth. The first speech was awful. The night before the party when I was 13, I found his draft crumpled in the bakery trash beside a torn flour bag. I should have left it there. But back then, I still believed if the family looked good, maybe I would be safe inside it. So I smoothed the paper on the counter, took a blue pen, and fixed it. I shortened his sentences. I moved the joke to the beginning. I added a line about small businesses being the backbone of towns like ours because I had heard Calvin say it once. The next day, Preston read my words to a backyard full of people. Calvin Sutter clapped first. "There it is," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That boy has the instincts." My mother pressed both hands to her chest. My father looked relieved. Preston smiled like praise was oxygen, and he had never once wondered who opened the window. I stood behind the drink table with lemonade on my fingers, watching my words become his future. That was the year I started keeping pieces. Not because I had a plan. I was still a child. Children do not collect evidence. They collect proof they are not crazy. Aunt Rosalie understood that before I did. After the guests left, she found me rinsing trays at the sink and handed me the crumpled draft I thought I had thrown away. My blue edits were still all over it. "You might want this someday," she said. Then she slipped it into her purse. I did not know about the tin box yet. I did not know she had already started saving birthday cards with my name still sealed inside them. I did not know she had asked a customer for a copy of the old VHS tape from my 11th birthday. I only knew that for the first time, an adult had seen something happen and had not tried to make it prettier. That should have comforted me. Instead, it scared me. Because if Aunt Rosalie saw it, then maybe it was real. And if it was real, my family was building something with me in the foundation. Preston was the only name they planned to put on the sign. The year I turned 17, I stopped thinking about birthdays and started thinking about doors. Not the kind with brass handles or bakery bells tied to them. Real doors. The kind that opened into a life where nobody could call my time helping and my silence maturity. I did not have a dramatic plan. I had a notebook hidden behind the loose panel of my closet, 3 brochures folded inside an old sweater box, and a guidance counselor named Mrs. Celeste Whitaker who looked at my transcript one Tuesday afternoon and said, "Evelyn, why are you acting like Harrisburg is on the moon?" Mrs. Whitaker had silver hair, glasses on a chain, and the kind of calm that made you answer honestly before you could stop yourself. She was the first person at school who asked what I wanted without immediately telling me what my family needed. I told her I liked hospitals, not blood, exactly. Order, schedules, the way people in crisis needed someone steady enough to know which form went where and which phone call came next. She slid a brochure across her desk for a healthcare coordination program in Harrisburg. "You'd be good at this," she said. I almost laughed because good at something sounded dangerous. In my house, being good at something meant someone found a way to use it. Still, I applied. I filled out the forms at Aunt Rosalie's kitchen table because our apartment above the bakery had no private corners. Rosalie made tea and did not hover. She sat across from me, with a crossword puzzle, occasionally saying things like, "Spell your middle name correctly. Freedom hates paperwork errors." I mailed the application on a Wednesday in March and told nobody at home. Then I waited. For 3 weeks, every sound from the mail slot made my chest tighten. Every afternoon after school, I checked the little basket by the bakery register where my mother dropped bills, flyers, sympathy cards, and customer checks. Nothing came. No envelope from Harrisburg. No rejection. No acceptance. Just silence. My mother noticed me looking one afternoon and asked, "Waiting on something?" I said, "Not really." She smiled the way she did when she already knew more than she wanted to admit. Sometimes a closed door is protection, sweetheart. My 17th birthday dinner was not a party. Preston had decided parties looked childish, now that he was building a brand, so my mother called it family supper. Meatloaf, green beans, bakery rolls, and Preston sitting at the table in a dress shirt with his phone face up beside his plate like a second guest. Halfway through dinner, my mother cleared her throat. "We've talked it over," she said, passing the green beans toward me. "Community classes here in town make the most sense. You can stay close, help at the bakery, and be available when Preston's office opens in January." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "We?" I asked. My father kept cutting his meatloaf into pieces too small for a grown man. Preston leaned back and gave me the soft smile people use when they have already spent your future for you. "Evie," he said, "you're the responsible one. Nobody's saying forever. Nobody ever says forever when they are building it around you." After dinner, I took the trash out because that was still my job, even on the night they announced my life for me. Behind the bakery, near the recycling bins, a wet scrap of paper had stuck to the brick. I almost left it there. Then I saw the blue crest, Harrisburg. Only the corner remained, torn through the middle of a sentence. My name was gone. The address was gone. But the crest was enough to make my stomach turn cold. 2 days later, Mrs. Whitaker called me into her office. She was holding a folder, and her face had the careful, calm adults use when they are trying not to scare a child. "Evelyn," she said, "why didn't you respond to the scholarship packet?" The room went very still. "What scholarship packet?" Her mouth tightened. She opened the folder and turned it toward me. $12,500. Mailed to my home address 3 weeks earlier. I stared at the page until the numbers blurred. For the first time, I really understood the difference between being overlooked and being held down. That night, I folded the torn scrap into the lining of my wallet. Not because it proved everything, because it proved enough. I walked 6 blocks to miss the first bus on purpose. Then I took the late one to Harrisburg. 17 is old enough to understand betrayal, still young enough to want an adult to say there's been a mistake. My thumb stayed pressed against the folded scrap hidden in my wallet the whole ride. Harrisburg, the blue crest, the scholarship packet, the silence at home. I kept turning those pieces over in my mind, trying to make them fit into anything that did not look like my mother's hand. Aunt Rosalie's house sat on a quiet street, 2 stories of brick and stubbornness, with a porch light she kept on even in daylight. She opened the door, looked at my face, and stepped aside without asking the kind of questions that make a person fall apart before they can answer. In her kitchen, she put the kettle on, set out 2 mugs, and waited until I laid the torn scrap and Mrs. Whitaker's copy on the table. Rosalie read the letter once. Then she read it again, slower. She did not say, "Maybe there was an explanation," or "family is complicated," or "don't jump to conclusions." She opened the narrow pantry beside the refrigerator, reached behind a row of canned peaches, and took out an old Christmas cookie tin with a faded red lid. I had seen that tin before. I thought it held sewing buttons or stale peppermints. Rosalie set it between us like evidence. Inside were pieces of my life I did not know anyone had saved. Birthday cards with my name still sealed. A copy of the VHS from my 11th birthday. The speech draft I had fixed with blue pen. Receipts for bakery supplies I'd paid for with diner tips. A folded note from Mrs. Whitaker confirming that a duplicate scholarship packet could be sent to Rosalie's address. I stared at the pile, and the room tilted a little. Being believed feels strange when you have spent years trying to believe yourself. "One day," Rosalie said, tapping the tin with 2 fingers, People will tell you it wasn't that bad. We're going to keep receipts." Then she slid a bank envelope across the table. Inside was a savings book Rosalie had helped me open. My name was printed on the first line, and the balance read $9,860. Weekend diner shifts, tips, birthday money she had made me keep. Small checks from her, marked as gifts. "You don't have to fight them tonight," she said. "You just have to stop handing them the map to your life." That was the night I started preparing quietly. I requested a certified copy of my birth certificate. Mrs. Whitaker helped me confirm the scholarship deadline. Rosalie called the school housing office from her kitchen phone in her retired librarian voice, the one that made people locate forms quickly. I kept working at the bakery. I kept smiling when Preston walked in like a man with a future. But I had a folder now. I had copies. I had a suitcase in Rosalie's hall closet. For the first time, I was not waiting for my family to notice me. I was building a door they did not know how to lock. And when my 18th birthday came 7 months later, I already knew where I would sleep if everything went wrong. What I did not know was how far they would go to make sure Preston's name stayed bigger than mine. My 18th birthday arrived on a hot Saturday that smelled like cut grass, charcoal, and buttercream. Aunt Rosalie had negotiated the terms herself in my mother's kitchen 2 weeks earlier. One party. Both names. No business announcement folded into dessert. My mother nodded with the injured patience she used for difficult customers. "Of course, Rosalie," she said. "We want Evelyn to feel celebrated." I let myself believe exactly 1 inch of it. Sometimes, hope does not come back as a flood. Sometimes it comes back as a mistake. By 3 o'clock, our backyard held 52 people. Folding chairs lined the fence. The bakery tables were covered in cream cloths. Calvin Sutter stood near the porch, with 2 men I did not recognize. Then, I saw the banner stretched from the maple tree to the back railing in gold letters. "To Preston Marlowe, the son who made us proud." Under it, Preston shook hands beside a poster board for his first deal under Calvin's firm. My name was nowhere, not on the banner, not on the cake table, not on the program beside the napkins. The cake was 2 tiers, white frosting and gold trim. Preston's name was piped across the top like a deed. My birthday cupcake sat in the kitchen, no candle, still sweating in its plastic shell. Aunt Rosalie saw it before I did. She walked straight to my mother and asked, loud enough for the closest table to hear, "Mary Ann, where is Evelyn's cake?" My mother did not blush. That was the part I remember. She only adjusted the platter in her hands and said, "She's 18 now. She doesn't need all that fuss." Then Calvin lifted his glass. "Some families," he said, "are blessed to raise a son who carries the name forward." People clapped, because people clap when a man in a blazer tells them where to put their hands. Preston smiled, already shining under borrowed light. Rosalie reached into her purse and pressed the clean Harrisburg copy into my hand. "Keep this close," she whispered. Preston noticed the crest. "You're really doing that," he said. "Running off to Harrisburg to push wheelchairs and file charts?" "It's my scholarship," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted, but at least it was mine. Preston stepped closer, still smiling. He took the paper before I understood he meant to. "Evie, don't be dramatic," he said. "You always make helping the family sound like prison." He flicked the page once, saw the amount, and his face changed. Then he tore the corner clean through the first line. Not all of it, just enough. Just enough to show me he could. My mother moved fast then, but not toward me. Toward him. "Preston, honey," she said, as if he were the one bleeding. My father stood by the grill and said, "Everybody calm down. 50. 2 people had gone quiet." I looked at the torn letter. Then at the banner. Then at the woman who had promised both names. Something in me did not explode. It settled. I went upstairs and took my suitcase. I brought down the Christmas cookie tin and set it on the gift table. "I'm leaving tonight," I said. My hands shook, but my voice did not. "But I'm done letting you call this a misunderstanding." My mother's face tightened. Preston laughed once, sharp and nervous. Calvin looked at the tin, like he recognized paperwork when he saw it. I did not open it yet. I only placed the torn scholarship letter on top. They thought the worst thing that happened that day was me walking out. They did not understand the mistake was what they let 52 people watch before I did. Aunt Rosalie did not take me back through the bakery. She walked me around the side alley past the flour sacks and trash bins. One hand held my suitcase, the other kept a grip on the cookie tin like it was fragile. Nobody followed us at first. We'd always been told family stuck together. The moment I left, they let the screen door swing shut behind me. Rosalie's Buick was parked under the maple tree. I got in with the torn scholarship letter pressed flat against my lap. We drove to Harrisburg without turning on the radio. The road unrolled in front of us, dark and ordinary, like it had not just become the line between the life I was leaving and the one I had built in secret. Halfway there, my phone started buzzing. My mother first, then my father, then Preston. The messages came one after another. You embarrassed us. Calvin had investors there. Your brother could lose everything because of this. Not one message asked where I was sleeping. At Rosalie's kitchen table, under the yellow light over the stove, we opened the tin. Not dramatically, we opened it like women checking a storm window before winter. Carefully, practically. One piece at a time. The VHS from my 11th birthday. The sealed cards with my name still stiff under the envelopes. Preston's speech draft with my blue edits running through his sentences in blue ink. The receipts, work schedules, scholarship copies, torn paper, all the small things my family had counted on disappearing. Freshly 18. I did not want a lawsuit or some grand public ruin. I wanted the ground to stop moving under me. I wanted proof that the years had happened the way I remembered them. That I had not invented the missing candles, the wrong names, the way my mother's face changed whenever my future required a room she could not supervise. The tin did not heal me, but it kept the truth from being lonely. Mrs. Whitaker answered Rosalie's call the next morning. I heard her voice through the receiver, steady and professional, confirming the deadline, confirming the scholarship, confirming that a second packet could be mailed directly to the school office. By noon, Rosalie had driven me to get copies made. By 2, I had signed the housing form. By dinner, my suitcase was open on her spare bed, and my mother had left a voicemail saying, "When you are ready to apologize, we can talk." I saved that voicemail. I saved the texts. I saved the torn paper in a plastic sleeve Rosalie found in an old binder. That became our new rule. If they said it, wrote it, mailed it, billed it, hid it, or tore it, we kept it. Not because I knew what would happen 12 years later. I didn't. Back then, I thought the tin was only for leaving. I had no idea it would become the thing my parents would one day sit across from me and beg me not to open. 12 years passed before the tin mattered again. I did not spend those years waiting for my family to become sorry. I was too busy becoming someone they could not use. Harrisburg became clinical rotations, rented rooms, bus schedules, bad coffee, and the first birthday cake with only my name on it. Later came Philadelphia suburbs, a small apartment with plants on the windowsill, and a job at a cardiac center where I helped people rebuild their lives after their hearts had scared them into honesty. Every June, Nora Bellamy baked blueberry lemon cake, and every year, I let myself believe the spelling. Then, on a Monday morning in November, my mother and father knocked on my apartment door. No warning, no call. Just Marianne holding a bakery box like a peace offering, and Harlan standing behind her with a brown envelope tucked under his arm. They looked smaller than I remembered. My father's hair had gone thin and gray. My mother's lipstick had settled into the little lines around her mouth. For one foolish second, I saw parents instead of history. I let them in. My mother sat at my kitchen table and looked at the birthday card from Rosalie pinned to my fridge. Then she said the sentence I had once needed more than air. "We failed you, Evelyn. I wish I could tell you I was too wise to feel it. I wasn't. Some rooms inside you stay unlocked no matter how many years you spend away. My throat tightened. Harland rubbed both hands over his knees and said, "We should have protected you better." I almost reached for my mother's hand. Then he slid the brown envelope across the table. Inside was a legal statement with my name already typed in 3 places. Preston and Calvin Sutter were under review over a failed real estate deal. A $46,300 transfer had moved years earlier through an old account connected to me. They needed me to sign that it had been voluntary family support, not unpaid wages, not money shifted without permission. Nothing worth investigating. Marianne touched the bakery box. "Do this," she said softly, "and maybe we can finally start over." There it was. The apology I had waited half my life to hear, tied neatly to another job they needed me to do. I looked at the paper, then at my mother. "So the apology was real," I said, "until I needed to sign something." Her face changed, just a little. "Don't make it ugly," she whispered. "Your brother could lose everything." I told them I needed time. They left thinking I meant time to forgive them. What I needed was time to make copies. I called Nora first, because chosen family teaches you not to carry heavy things alone. She came over after her shift still wearing her hospital badge, read the statement twice, and set it down like it was something rotten. "Evelyn," she said, "this isn't an apology, this is cleanup." I had already known that, but hearing it outside my own head made my hands stop shaking. Then I called the one person Rosalie had told me to keep in my phone under boring names. A records attorney named Daniel Mercer, listed as D office. 2 days later, I sat across from Daniel in a small conference room with gray carpet, bottled water, and a window facing a parking garage. It did not look like justice. It looked like a place where people signed things they did not fully understand. Daniel spread the statement on the table, then placed my copies beside it. Old texts, the voicemail, bakery schedules, receipts, the savings record, the torn scholarship letter, and the bank notice tied to the old account. He did not gasp. Good attorneys do not gasp. He only said, "Do not sign this." My parents arrived 20 minutes late with Preston and Calvin Sutter behind them. Preston wore a navy suit and the same wounded confidence I remembered from the backyard. Calvin looked older but not softer, his silver hair combed back, his smile polished into something almost legal. My mother saw the folders in front of me and stopped walking for half a second. My father noticed, too. That was how I knew they had expected the old Evelyn, the girl who froze first, then helped. Daniel invited them to sit. Calvin remained standing. "This can be handled privately," he said. "No need to turn a family misunderstanding into a public embarrassment." Nora, sitting beside me, made a sound under her breath that almost became a laugh. My mother looked at me. "Evelyn, sweetheart, we came to you first because we trusted you." I waited for the old ache to rise. It did, but it no longer got to drive. "No," I said. "You came to me first because my name is on the paper." Preston leaned forward. "You don't understand what's at stake." He tapped the table with 2 fingers, just like Calvin used to tap a podium before speeches. "People have employees, families. If this goes wrong, it hurts more than me." There it was again, the old trick. Make his consequences sound like a community service project. I looked at my father. "Did you know money moved through that account?" Harland swallowed. My mother answered for him. "Your father did what he thought was best." Daniel slid one document across the table. "Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe, this account was opened when Evelyn was a minor and later used without clear written authorization. We will not be characterizing that as voluntary support." Calvin's face hardened. A family's reputation matters more than one woman's old hurt. The room went quiet. Even my mother looked at him then, not because he was wrong, but because he'd said the thing everyone was pretending not to see. I opened my purse and took out the Christmas cookie tin. I did not empty it. Not yet. I set it on the table between us, the faded red lid catching the fluorescent light. Preston stared at it like it might bite. My mother whispered, "Evelyn, please." I looked at the people who had taught me silence, then punished me for learning proof. "I'm not here to ruin the family," I said. I'm here to stop being the place you hide what ruins it. Daniel closed the folder. Then we begin with records. The first record Daniel requested was not dramatic. It was not a confession, not a headline, not Preston breaking down in a hallway. It was a bank statement printed on white paper with numbers lined up in quiet little columns. That was how truth arrived sometimes. Not shouting, not glowing, just sitting there, patient and ugly, until someone stopped pretending not to see. The old account had been opened when I was 16, supposedly for my bakery checks. Years later, money had moved through it again, after I had already left home and changed banks twice. Daniel traced the transfers with a yellow highlighter. $46,300 had gone in and out in less than 10 days. The sender was tied to one of Calvin's development partnerships. The withdrawal went toward Preston's failed property deal. My name sat in the middle like a rug thrown over a stain. They didn't need you to understand the money, Daniel said. They needed your name to make it look ordinary. I thought of every birthday where I had stood beside someone else's cake. Even on paper, they had used me as the table underneath. Then came the bakery files. Harlan turned them over after Daniel's formal request, though he brought them in like a man carrying wet laundry. Timesheets, payroll notes, handwritten schedules from years when I was still a teenager. My mother had marked my hours as family help in one column and training in another, depending on which word saved more money. There were receipts with my tips covering supply runs. Birthday weeks when I worked full shifts while Preston's celebration went under promotional expenses. Daniel did not raise his voice. Unpaid labor patterns, he said, and somehow the plainness hurt worse than anger. The tin opened last. Not because it was the most legal thing in the room, but because it held the pieces that made us human. Rosalie sat beside me, hands folded over her purse, watching my mother watch the faded red lid come off, the sealed cards. The VHS label, the torn scholarship corner, the speech draft with my blue ink all over Preston's future. My mother whispered, "Why would you keep all this?" Rosalie answered before I could. "Because you taught her nobody would believe her without it." Preston stared at the table, his face pale and angry in turns. "You're really going to destroy me over birthdays?" he said. I looked at him for a long moment. "No," I said. "You did not get here because of birthdays. You got here because people kept saying theft was support, silence was loyalty, and my future was selfish." Calvin stood up then, chair scraping hard against the floor. But Daniel had already closed the evidence folder. The room did not belong to Calvin anymore. For the first time, it belonged to the record. Calvin Sutter resigned from the Business Association 3 weeks later. The announcement used words like transition and personal priorities because men like Calvin never fall. They step away. Preston's deal collapsed before Christmas, and with it went the little crowd of people who had once clapped before he finished speaking. No one was arrested in some grand movie ending. No one stood on a courthouse step begging my forgiveness. Real consequences were quieter than that. Licenses reviewed, accounts frozen. Investors called back their promises. My name removed from paperwork where it never should have been. Harland came to Daniel's office alone in January with a check for $18,740. Unpaid wages, Daniel called it. My father called it, what we could gather. He looked smaller without my mother beside him. His hands trembled when he slid the check across the table. "I should have said something years ago," he told me. I believed him. That did not make him innocent. Silence had been his language so long that even his apology felt rusty. My mother asked to meet me once, at a coffee shop halfway between Lancaster and Harrisburg. She brought no cake. I noticed that first. She looked at me over a paper cup and said, "I don't know how to be your mother if you won't let the past stay buried." I waited for anger, but what came was tiredness. "Then maybe start by not calling the truth a grave," I said. She cried quietly, the kind that wanted someone to reach across the table. I did not move across the table. That September, Nora baked blueberry lemon cake in my apartment kitchen. Rosalie came with a grocery bag full of candles because she said 31 deserved options. Damon Price stopped by after his shift with flowers from the hospital gift shop, still wrapped in plastic. We ate off mismatched plates, and nobody made a speech about legacy. Nobody thanked me for understanding. Nobody asked me to step aside so another name could shine brighter. When they sang my name once, and that was enough to undo something without pretending it had never been broken. I keep the Christmas cookie tin in my closet now, not because I live in the past, but because I respect the girl who had to save proof of her own life. Some families teach you love by making room for you. Mine taught me truth by trying to erase me. For a long time, I thought healing meant forgiving them enough to go back. I was wrong. Sometimes healing is a locked door, a quiet birthday, and your name written exactly where it belongs. The lesson I learned is not that every family will protect you just because they share your last name. Some people can sit at your dinner table, know your birthday, know your dreams, know exactly where you hurt, and still ask you to shrink so someone else can feel larger. That is a painful truth, but it is also a freeing one. Because once you stop confusing closeness with love, you begin to recognize love by what it does, not what it claims. Real love does not need you to disappear. Real family does not build one child's future out of another child's silence. It does not call sacrifice maturity when only one person is always doing the sacrificing. It does not ask you to prove your loyalty by giving up your name, your dream, your money, or your voice. And sometimes, the person who saves you is not the loudest one in the room. Sometimes it is the aunt who keeps the porch light on, the friend who reads the paper twice and says, "This is not right," the counselor who sees a door where your family tried to build a wall. The people who love you may not erase what happened, but they help you remember that what happened was real. Healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes, healing is keeping records. Sometimes it is moving into a small apartment and buying your own cake. Sometimes it is saying no without explaining it until your throat hurts. Sometimes, it is realizing that peace may cost you a relationship, but losing yourself would have cost more. If this story felt familiar, remember this. Being the strong one doesn't mean you were born to carry everyone else's consequences. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you sign up to be hurt by them again. Walking away from people who keep using your heart as a hiding place isn't cruel. It is survival. If Evelyn's story touched something in you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose yourself after being told for years that doing so was selfish? I'd really like to hear your story. Please subscribe to the channel for more emotional family stories about truth and resilience. They're about the quiet strength it takes to finally write your own name where it belongs.